Hi guys, I'm Dominic Vose and this is Dragonheart.
Welcome to Dragonheart. This has been a crazy week in the Wrexham universe. But first, I'm going to introduce my co-hosts, Bill and Mark. How are you doing after that fantastic Tuesday night game?
It's certainly striking how much better it is after a game like that. All of a sudden, everything's fantastic, and we've all spontaneously turned up in our TikTok garb in order to celebrate the occasion.
How are you, Bill?
Yeah, great. I've still kind of not come down from that match. Really, it's not often in a season you get a game where you want to watch the highlights 5 or 6 times. And I think I'm on about time 7 or 8 now, so very happy.
Actually, that's true. I don't think I've seen any game more than this one on the highlights. You're quite right.
Well, it was a real special game, and we're going to be going through that. We're going to be talking about the Notts County game first a little bit because our show will be airing just before it's coming on. So we're going to have a quick 5 minutes about that. We're going to talk about our evaluation of Phil Parkinson so far and performing in front of big crowds. So, yeah, a lot to talk about. This is Dragonheart.
Playing the music you love. This is Calon FM.
Before we get on to the Boreham Wood game, we're going to have a quick chat about a little bit of a preview about the Notts County game because, of course, this podcast will be released. Well, the podcast and the radio show will be released just before kickoff. So, FA Trophy. Well, it looks like, looking from the trend from how we've been playing this season, we're going to be taking it quite seriously, aren't we, Bill?
Yeah, I was talking about it to Phil from Bank Street Coffee. Shout out, Phil, if you're listening. He pointed out, that we've taken it really seriously this year, and there's not really been many changes. And why get to the quarterfinals and make serious changes? I think maybe you look to rest the strikers because we've got a lot of options there. McAlinden and James Jones to an extent are already options that, if we had a fully fit squad, might not have started. So you probably keep them in. And then the back 3, back 5, well, they seem to be playing every week, don't they? The only thing is you might see Hosanna come in. So strong side, even if we do rotate a little bit, to be fair. We've got a good squad depth now, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the obvious change, I agree. I think we'll pick as strong team as we can. I also agree that if there's a risk, there's no point in taking it. So we don't know what knocks there might have been after Tuesday's game. McFadden, it was brilliant that he played 90 minutes for the first time on Tuesday, but maybe we're pushing it to make him play on the Friday. But then Bryce Hosanna is probably the player who's most knocking on the door to come into the team. So, yeah, maybe Hosanna comes in on the left, and apart from that, yeah, I suspect it'll be pretty similar, to be honest.
Mullin stopped a few times on Tuesday, holding his leg. So I think maybe you change him, put Ponticelli in. We've got quality on. We've got a quality squad who need game time as well. So I think, keep the core of the team, but I'm not against having some rotation as well.
I've got to say, though, Mullin might, if he's like 50-50 or not 50-50, if it's just a precautionary thing, he might have difficulty convincing him. Because remember what happened last time at Notts County when he missed a penalty? And I have a funny feeling that the way he's playing right now, he'll be desperate to get back there and make amends.
Yeah, I get that, but sometimes you've got to stop the player from hurting himself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I still think Ponticelli's had a fantastic season. He needs game time. He needs to be sharp. I'm personally not against rotating, but we have got so far into this tournament now. We may as well take it really serious because we're only a couple of games away from. Is it Wembley, the FA Trophy this year? I know the playoff final could be different, but yeah, I'm pretty sure FA Trophy's Wembley. So I'd like to say Wembley's always a nice day out. So, well, Well,
Yeah.
maybe not the last FA Trophy final or the last playoff final that we were in. But yeah, it'd be nice for the new Hollywood Reds to get to Wembley again, wouldn't it, Bill?
Do you know what would be the perfect scenario? And this is Dreamland talk. There's I've heard a lot of mentions, you know, that the trophy final this year is just before the playoff final, and everyone's saying, oh, you know, we could go play in the trophy and the playoff. I don't want that. I want us to go up before the final and before the trophy final, and have that trophy final as a nice cap to the end of the season. Imagine we've already won the league and we're going to Wembley just for an added bonus. And even if you don't win, you're still coming away, league champions, been in a final in Wembley, happy days.
Yeah.
Well, as the pessimist in this podcast, I highly doubt that'll happen, because we've got two teams above us still in the league, and we can't get too ahead of ourselves just yet. You know, there's a lot of football to be played. You know, we are playing really well at the moment, but there's a lot of football to be played. Yeah, and Stockport are still quite a few points ahead.
How about this one, right? Sorry to cut in slightly. There's a very good chance for the teams that are left in the trophy that we could be playing a team that we face in the playoffs in the trophy final.
Oh, double header.
Imagine having to play Stockport twice within a, you know, if they were to fall by the wayside, then another team were to take up that place, having to play Stockport twice in the playoff and in the trophy final. Doesn't even bear thinking about, really, does it?
Alternative universe.
But I'd like to think if Stockport do drop off that heavy, that we would be the side to jump in.
Of course, yeah.
To win the league, because I think Chesterfield are dropping off a little bit now. Stockport are still in good form, but if they're going to drop off, I think if anyone's going to, if Stockport aren't going to win the league, I think we have a fantastic chance. But the key thing is Stockport dropping off, which I can't see. Anyway, we've had our quick FA Trophy.
Can I just congratulate Bill? Brilliant mind games there to manage to make Chay be optimistic about it. You fooled him into saying we're going to win the league there. Good work.
Well, more about, I think we're going to talk about in the next segment, that excellent game against Boreham Wood. I'm sure we're going to talk about what we think our league chances are after this. So after this, we're going to talk about that blockbuster of a night.
I'm Hayden, and this is Dragonheart.
Boreham Wood, Tuesday night underneath the lights. It was a special game, and unfortunately I didn't get to cover the game as I was too busy, but fortunately I managed to get myself a ticket, and it was a special night to be in the stands, wasn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I think there's now starting to be like a palpable feeling of relief whenever we beat teams, like a not just relief, but like that ecstasy. And it's I almost had a bit of a moment thinking about it, like yesterday, just that, wow, if that's the atmosphere when we're still so far away from the title, what's it going to be like when we do eventually go up? I mean, it's almost emotional, isn't it? You know, it was the atmosphere was electric. It's the best I've heard the race course in a very, very long time. And we've had some all right atmospheres this year. It was rocking, wasn't it, Mark?
It was terrifying, wasn't it? It was absolutely brilliant. I don't think Boreham Wood enjoyed it much, I've got to be honest. But oh my word. I mean, it was just one of those fantastic nights with everything, the atmosphere, the performance, the pantomime villains as well. Because I must admit, you know, when ITV before the Everton game was showing how sweet those plucky little giant killers Boreham Wood are, playing their schmaltzy emotional videos, I did feel a bit sickened, I gotta be honest. And it was hugely entertaining to watch us put them to the sword like that, especially as they sort of reverted to type a bit. Those used to be a big physical Route 1 team. And there they were doing it again. And well, we certainly counteracted it well, didn't we? It was a fantastic performance.
it was an excellent performance. And for me, what made it great was you could see Boreham Wood had some excellent players, didn't they? They're quite clearly a good side who are top of the top five for a reason, aren't they, Mark?
100%. I mean, in an alternate universe, that game could have turned out very differently. I banged on about it in the commentary, in the podcast, and everything else. But the fact of the matter is that when you get a team playing long ball like that, it's all about imposing your game on the other one, and those games tend to go into phases, and it really did on Tuesday. I thought first 10 minutes, Boreham Wood really penned us in, and we then recovered and we imposed our style on them, and we had the middle of the half, they finished well, but they started the second half well, and then around about the 50th minute, we just took complete control, and I thought that was superb. You've got to be mentally strong to stand up to that sort of side and that sort of approach, and wow, we certainly were. I was delighted. After about the 50th minute, we devastated them, and I thought, it wasn't just that, they sort of disintegrated a bit, and they're the team of the best defence in the division, aren't they? 17 goals conceded before Tuesday, and we stuck 4 goals past them, and they fell to pieces. It could have been more. It wasn't bad, was it?
It was amazing, and we kicked off the score 15 minutes in. Ollie Palmer header from a corner. We've been quite deadly from set pieces this year, haven't we, Mark?
Brilliant. Nice bit of movement, nice bit of blocking off the ball as well. And, you look at the size of the Boreham Wood side, and there, yeah, Palmer getting on the end of it, as Hayden would later. I mean, it's fantastic. I've got to say, I don't know what you think, Bill. I mean, that front two from the very start, they scared Boreham Wood, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think Ollie Palmer in particular was really up for it, wasn't he? He was on fire, I think, that game, and you go and break your transfer record, and it's always a risk, but he that's exactly why we bought him, isn't it? He's just the missing ingredient. Everything about his style of play is all those games where we go, we could have won that 2-0, or we could have won it 3-0. He's just linked all of that up together, and what a player.
Yeah, he's a player that should be playing. Another player should be definitely playing at a higher level, and you pay good money for good players and for big performances, and he certainly racked up another good performance against Boreham Wood on Tuesday night. It was excellent, but it did get worrying at times. Scott Bowden equalised just before half time, didn't he? And that was quite theatrical, wasn't it, Bill?
Yeah, it was a bit bizarre. Look, me and Mark talked about it last week with the way fans can affect the game, and usually you get a bit of a sense for when there's a bit of a problem between a player and the crowd, and I just didn't feel it beforehand. I'd be very happy to admit that, if there was something I missed coming into the ground, or whether it was from the game a couple of weeks before in the trophy, or whether there was just another game that Scott Bowden's played for in one of his many, many clubs he's played for against Wrexham, that he's had some stick. But I think for the most part, Wrexham fans felt a little bit indifferent about him. He didn't have the greatest spell here, but he certainly wasn't for lack of trying, and fans didn't really dislike him, so it was all a bit odd. And, unless someone's just shouted something at him that he didn't like the sound of in the crowd earlier in the game. I really don't understand it, and he's ended up with real big egg on his face, hasn't he, Mark?
Well, yeah. I mean, my assumption, because obviously I'm on the opposite side of the pitch from where he went and goaded the fans. I got the impression that stuff was being said in the build-up just before that goal. Like I said, Boreham Wood, Route 1, so they're pinging balls to turn our defence, and then we're trying to get them away as far as we can, and then they move up the pitch and they pen us in. They get throw-ins and pen us in or whatever. And as a result, when a team plays that sort of style, sometimes the ball just gets stuck in that little quarter of the pitch for quite a long time, and that happened before the goal. And it did sound a bit raucous over there. And so I wonder if they were having a bit of a go at the Boreham Wood players. And certainly Bowden looked furious. I agree completely. He's been fairly insipid, I think, against us, to be honest with you. So, but whatever happens, like I said, he massively got egg on his face. I don't think I've ever heard a reaction to a player getting subbed like his. They weren't booing him, they were laughing at him. He's gone and done that, and then we've dismantled his team, and it was a perfect response, wasn't it?
Well, in all fairness, Mark, me and Bill were right in the thick of it on Tuesday, and it was just a bit of, Wrexham reject songs.
Yeah.
It was in good taste. I don't think it was anything malicious.
Yeah,
it didn't warrant that ridiculous weird celebration, because I don't think he really got any hate. It was still a bit out of the blue and bizarre, wasn't it? And then now every time he's going to play against Wrexham, he's going to get loads of dogs abuse, isn't he? Now, there's he's got egg on his face, and it's just, it was all a bit of a strange situation. But
I also thought he played well up until that point, and then disappeared out the game. And to be fair, I think that's partly because the game disappeared out of our half. To be honest, but he was linking things up very intelligently, and probably that's the best I've seen him play against us in the first 40 odd minutes. Nicely taken goal as well, although Paul Johnson won't be very happy with how we defended it.
But I could feel there was a bit of a sense of anxiousness in the stands going into the second half, because we were the better side in the first half, I'd argue. We had the better chances, but we still go into the second half 1-1, and it was quite frustrating in many ways. But I was reasonably optimistic we'd get back into the game, and we did. 61 minutes in, another Ben Tozer throw that's landing on Aaron Hayden head. It's like a heat-seeking missile, isn't it? It's working really, really well, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I would make a comment, but Mark looks like he has some sort of pun to do with flying and heat-seeking missiles. And is there a Red Baron pun that can be fit in there? Heat-seeking missiles probably a little bit before the Baron's time, wasn't it? So, no, what a header! And there's just something quite magical about a player being what looks like slow-mo stuck in the air for ages, and you kind of know as the ball's coming in, if he connects with this, it's probably going to go in. I mean, we've completely run out of superlatives for Aaron Hayden, haven't we? We may as well just give him Player of the Season trophy now, I think. I'll put it out there already.
So I go.
Yeah, I agree. Everything he brings to the table is amazing. I will be amazed if we end up keeping him in the summer, because I think he's good enough for the Championship.
But we have money. And he's been sold a project. He signed a long-term contract. So if somebody in the Championship wants him, they're going to have to put up enough money for a couple of fairly wealthy individuals to think, we'd like to have that cash. He seems very happy as well, doesn't he? I agree. I think I've said this before. Curtis Tilt has done it ever so well for himself, going up the divisions. Hayden's a different class from him, I think, massively. But I think we're wonderfully in a position to keep older players now, because we have absolutely no necessity to sell.
Oh yeah, I agree. And keep hold of him or make a good sum of money off him to get more players back in. So it's a unique situation to be in as a National League side, isn't it? So, but yeah, Aaron Hayden's just, and Ben Tozer, they're just two centre halves who should be playing at League One minimum, especially Aaron Hayden.
I love them. I love that goal. I love that. I mean, I didn't even notice that, Tozer had run across and taken a quick long throw. I don't think I've ever seen one of them before. He sprinted across. I didn't see him get across. And it took me by surprise. All of a sudden, I saw Tozer just appearing out of nowhere, hurling it back in again. And it totally got Boreham Wood out. In commentary, Mark Fenner rightly sort of compared it to that Trent Alexander-Arnold corner against Barcelona, where the defence wasn't set yet. And I mean, it was. I mean, we've talked about that combination. 4 of Hayden's goals this season have come from Tozer's throws, and I don't know. As you were in the Rex Rents, no, you were in the Macron. You may not have been able to see what Tozer did with a later throw, where he actually went up the steps of the entrance into the stand.
Yes,
It was
we
brilliant.
we did see. It was excellent. It was
What a
brilliant.
That was brilliant. If he'd slipped then on his blades on the steps. But that was crazy. That was. Oh, it was just a night of fun, wasn't it, really? But Hayden's brilliant, isn't he? Hayden, Tozer, dominant. And I've got to say, I mean, in the first half, Boreham Wood seemed to focus an awful lot of play down the right-hand side. And obviously, they're pumping it long. And you've got to ask the question, is this a deliberate thing to focus on Cleworth, thinking he's the weak link out of the 3? Well, of course, we know that he's younger, but there's no drop-off in quality. Cleworth was brilliant again. But in the second half, though, I mean, honestly, if you look up futility in the dictionary, it's Boreham Wood constantly pinging the ball down the left-hand side into Hayden's area of the pitch. I mean, what do you expect to gain from that? Just pounding the headers back to him. It was fantastic.
There was a moment at some point, and I can't, it was in the second half, but I couldn't pinpoint it exactly. It might have been before we'd even taken the lead for 2-1, where, not trying to hang Reece Johnson out to dry or anything, but I think Hayden seemed to be getting a little bit frustrated with the movement. Maybe it's a bit of a communication or something, but he completely took the game by the scruff of the neck. He took the ball and moved forward with it, almost as if it was a little bit like, come on, this is what you should be doing. And for a centre-back to have that kind of quality, looking like a right-back, moving forward with the ball, nonchalantly just taking on Boreham Wood players. I mean, it's just quality. I just don't know what to say about him. It's just, we haven't seen a defender this good in a very long time, I don't think.
Well, his sort of formative, the club that he first got a bit of a run in the team for was Stourbridge. He went there on loan, and he was he plays a wing back for him, and I can kind of
that
see
explains a lot.
Yeah.
I
mean, don't get me wrong, that bloke's a centre back, no question. He's got such amazing attributes, but I can see the logic of a wing back, because you can imagine him just bursting up and down the line, can't you, if he was released to do that?
100%, and I'm assuming when he was playing at a wing back, he would have been younger. So
no, he was older.
Maybe not. Obviously, but I'm assuming it wasn't like last season or a couple of seasons ago. It was when he was at the start of his career.
2017-18, and then also 2018-19. He spent the season 18-19 at Stourbridge, and then the season before he had half a season there, and he had half a season at Telford on loan. So we got 11 games in half a season with them, and then 29 games the season after, and then he got a move to Carlisle.
Oh, well, fair play. So it wasn't that long ago then. It wasn't as much as I was expecting, to be fair. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about Aaron Hayden. And then recently, James Jones is really proving his doubters wrong as well. 66th minute in, James Jones gets a lovely goal, doesn't he? And he could have got one just slightly previous, that long shot, and forced a fantastic save from Boreham Wood's goalkeeper. Yeah, James Jones, you've been a big fan of his all season, haven't you, Mark? When a lot of people have been critical of him. He's in an excellent run of form at the moment, isn't he?
Last 2 games, he's been superb. It really stood out. And yeah, I like Jones a lot. I understand people's reservations, because they think, these players coming down from League One are just going to look sensational and way above our level. And Jones is a different type of player from Mullen and Palmer and Hayden and Tozer. And he does make mistakes sometimes. Yeah, and I think he'd probably admit himself there have been points where his form maybe hasn't been quite as good as he'd like it to be. But the truth is, I mean, he's got an unbelievable engine. The way he was chasing around at the very end of the game, he made a little 20-meter sprint in added time just to stop Mondi from knocking the ball down the wing. And it was just, he just thought, wow, yeah, he looks like he's just come off the bench and he's fresh. he's got an unbelievable motor on him. And he just covers the ground brilliantly. I think he's unlucky to only have, 3 goals so far this season, because he looks like he's got more goals in him. He strikes the ball well from the edge of the box. And he's had a few sort of unlucky moments, like you said, good saves by keepers. Also, that one in our first home game of the season when he scored a screamer, the linesman gave Jake Hyde offside, and we saw on the TV pictures Hyde wasn't offside, so we should have had a goal on his home debut. That might have given him a boost. But his energy, his tackling, is the fact that he's everywhere is brilliant. And he just reminds me, as I said this in commentary a couple of games ago, he reminds me a little bit of Mel Sutton in the great sort of late 70s team. And Sutton was a very, very hard-working midfielder, no frills, and some of the fans used to get on his back a little bit. But he was that hard worker that makes the skillful players have a platform to perform on. And the players loved him. And he used to talk about him having a third lung because he just wouldn't stop working and running, and he'd do all the ugly stuff. And Jones does that. He makes little covering runs, and people understandably don't notice it because the pass never comes in, because Jones has sprinted back to make the pass not worth it. But he fills gaps. His movement's good. There was a brilliant run he made in the first half across the box, and it was just, I thought he was a striker, and I thought it was Mullen, and I thought, oh, it's Joey Jones doing that, dragging people around and making space for other players. And no, I like him. I mean, ironically, of course, he's probably 4th choice in midfield at the moment when everyone's fit, but he's certainly making a case to be considered higher in the rankings on that, isn't he?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think he has been excellent recently. He's got a real motor on him, and I think he's had a lot of unfair criticism. I don't think he's the type of player to hit the ground running in the National League. It's a different type of football, isn't it? He's not an Ollie Palmer who comes in, looks a world beater straight away because he's naturally strong, physical. With Ollie Palmer, it's going to suit him, isn't it? This sort of style of football, against National League centre backs. But he's coming, he's slowly grown into it, and he has just been excellent this last couple of games. And maybe this could be the catalyst to, maybe make this real title run, because him hitting form at the right time is going to be good. The fans are really happy and bouncing at the moment. Bill, is the title out of reach still, or do you think this is possible that we could still win it?
Well, the titleometer, as I'm patenting, don't take that off me, please. I don't know. I think it all depends on Stockport, doesn't it? I'm sticking to my rating of 6, just because the points gap hasn't really changed massively. We are looking to chase Stockport, and we need them to slip up before we can say that it's going higher. But in terms of momentum and the performance and the atmosphere and we bring in all the right ingredients to the table, and we've just got to keep on like this and not get deflated if Stockport don't mess up, because the pressure's on them. Tozer said it earlier in the week that he actually prefers to be in this position where we're chasing somebody else, because really if we slip up, we're probably still going to get the playoffs. We're probably still in a decent position. There's not really a lot of pressure on us to perform, whereas Stockport have now got us and Chesterfield and a couple of other teams breathing down their necks, and they've got to keep performing as well. So bring it on.
Well, I've got to say, Stockport, right? If we're still 6 points behind them in mid-April, I fancy us to win the league. Because up until that point, they've got some really nice fixtures. Admittedly, next Tuesday, they're playing Notts County at home. But after that, they got a lovely run of fixtures. And so if they drop any points between now and the middle of April, I reckon that's a bonus. They got Wealdstone at home, Kingsland away, Eastleigh away, Torquay at home, Southend at home. They could well win all those games. But we got to keep...
Southend are on really good form at the moment, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But man, I think Stockport are strong. However, after that, they're running. Yeah, their last 8 games of the season: Grimsby away, Solihull at home, Yeovil away, Boreham Wood at home, Chesterfield away, us away, Halifax at home. Yeovil, the only game there where you'd think they'll go there and wipe the floor with them. They could drop a lot of points in that running, and it's that starts off with 2 games in 3 days, the Easter weekend, and it's Saturday, Monday, Saturday. Oh man, that's tough. That's a tough run of fixtures. They're not going to get through that with 100%, and we got them at our patch. I fancy us. I've got to be honest.
We still got Chesterfield to think about as well.
Yeah, I remember battering them.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too overconfident.
Third manager of the season by then.
We've got Bromley and Halifax. Our next 2 games, is it? Very tough games.
Yeah.
Away and home. And then we have Dover, Weymouth, Barnet, Eastleigh. We should be winning them. And then it is looking favourable in some regards, but I don't know. I think we've left it a little bit too late to win the title.
See the state of Chesterfield's pitch? They'll be in their knees by the end of the season.
They'll be playing water polo.
The legs worn down to nubs.
But we've got Bromley at home. Saturday 19th of March. It's a tough game. We've got Halifax at home. It's a tough game. I'm not getting too ahead of myself. I think we'll get second or third. To be realistic, I think Stockport are too good. I think Stockport will go up as champions. It's very interesting. I think it could go down to that last home game this season against Stockport. So it's getting very exciting.
Was he always just happy-go-lucky, Bill?
Do you know what? Yeah, he is.
But my bet is that Stockport would have already won the league before we play them at home.
Well, they better have it done for their sake, the way we are playing.
Yeah. They're a good side too, though. They're very good. They're top of the league for a very good reason.
I'm Liam McClendon and this is Dragonheart.
Back to the Boreham Wood game though. I couldn't quite believe the scoreline. They did get a goal back, which did make me feel a little bit nervous in some ways, but the atmosphere was rocking. And for some reason, it just felt like one of those special nights. And the last goal, it was all capped off with Super Paul Mullin, wasn't it, Bill? And it was that Wrexham stand just went wild, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy 5 minutes between our 2 goals. Then what was it, about 10 minutes or whatever it was in between them, our 2 goals. They're really, really quick equaliser, which, in a lot of games in the past at the racecourse, that would have actually really knocked the stuffing out of us. But I don't think it's almost as if nobody even noticed it went in. The atmosphere stayed as it was, and the songs were still going and people were up for it. And then that late and long ball up to Paul Mullin, and you just kind of knew as soon as he took control of it, he's going to score here. And like you say, it just exploded, didn't it? And that was it. I've been sort of describing it to people this week as we big teamed them. So we've had it happen to us. Maybe in the past, I wouldn't say that they were much bigger teams than us, but when we played Luton and Tranmere and we've gone to their place and they just sort of bossed it with atmosphere and the style of play. But we did that to Boreham Wood and their players looked phased. Especially when that third goal went in, I think they looked even though they scored quickly, they looked emotionally shattered, and that fourth goal absolutely killed the game, didn't it, Mark?
Oh yeah, I mean it was interesting when that their second goal is your classic long ball team goal. We score 4 touches of the ball later by them, they've scored. Just a kick off, laid backwards, thumped forwards. Hayden has had it behind for the corner. Corner's put in. Marsh heads it in. That's Route 1 football for you, and that's exactly why you couldn't feel comfortable at any time, because a team like that can play badly and then suddenly bang a ball in the right area and they've scored. But luckily, because we just came straight back and scored, and that killed them off, didn't it? 3 goals in 4 minutes 7 seconds, and not the first time Leighton's done that. He did the same at Stockport, didn't he? He hit it 3 for Mullins to score. So wow, I mean, we were saying about how he's a really good striker of the ball, but that was just beautiful. I mean, you shouldn't be able to hit it straight down the middle, a dead ball like that, and then have the striker run onto it. It wasn't well defended, but wonderful stuff. I mean, I suppose the other turning point was the comedy moment of Connor Stevens going off, and they had no centre-backs on the bench, and they didn't have Mark Ricketts in midfield, who used to be a centre-back. So what do? They bring on James Comley, a deep-line playmaker, who's always played well against us for Maidenhead, and he comes on as a makeshift centre-back and was absolutely awful, the poor bloke, and we capitalised so fully on that. That was remarkable. They ended up...
Our friend that we were with, Ian Ledger, shout out, I'm doing loads of shout outs today, but shout out to Ian if you're listening. He would not stop going on about it, Jay, would he? How awful the Boreham Wood player looked. And do you know what? Like I've probably mentioned before, but I don't usually pay a lot of attention to opposition players. I did think he stood out as being not particularly good, but if he was playing out of position, then fair enough. I think that gives him a little bit of credit. I've
always been quite impressed with him. He's always seems to have a good game against us at Maidenhead, but frankly, he is not a centre-back. He's a deep-lying playmaker. He's quite slow, but he's very good on the ball, and he's calm on the ball. I know the sort of midfielder who'll try and get a bit of grip on the game and move the ball around and offer for return and try and control the tempo of the match. Not a centre-back at all. And it didn't help him that his first touch was the ball came across him on that little rough patch of the pitch, just on the far corner of the box from you at the Wrexham end, and took a bad bounce, and he just took a swing and missed it completely and ended up on his backside, and everyone's laughing at him, and that just seemed to keep going for him, didn't it? From that, and that was like the tone setter. But and at the end, they were like hiding him, weren't they? They had him at right back for a bit. They put him in midfield for a bit. They were just trying to hide him because they couldn't put him at the back. But I felt a bit sorry for him. I suppose all players have a day like that. But he was put into an awkward situation there, and we took full advantage.
We certainly did. I'm really curious to know, Mark, who was the commentary's man of the match?
Oh, we had a bit of an arm wrestling match over this. So there are 3 of us commentating. So Neil Williams went first. Right. As I asked the other 2, who do you think is man of the match? In my head, I had James Jones. Now, Neil made what I can only describe as a beautiful speech, arguing it should be Luke Young. And he changed my mind. And then Mark, the other commentator, he made a case for Jones. And so I said, well, you know what? I've actually changed my mind because Neil convinced me. And I went for Young. But I've got to say, for me, there were about 7, 8 players who I wouldn't have argued against if we decided man of the match. The 2 strikers were superb. The 3 midfielders did well. Maybe I wouldn't say McAlinden man of the match, but he put in a hell of a good shift and did some good things. McFadden was excellent, I thought, defensively and going forwards. The 3 centre-backs. That's 8. Leighton didn't have enough to do. Hall Johnson, well, I mean, it's quite poor, their first goal. He didn't have the best of his games, but I'm not saying he was bad. But yeah, who would you have gone for?
From the stands, I probably said Ollie Palmer. Thought he was throwing himself about, physical. The Boreham Wood defenders just did not know what to do with him. Yeah, he had a brilliant goal. But yeah, to be honest, I couldn't argue with any of the 8 players you mentioned then, really. It was just one of those nights where it clicked into place for numerous members of the team. And it was just It was just brilliant. And I think a big part on why we won and why it was so magical is 'cause I think the fans were absolutely excellent from the beginning to the end. And I think when you're playing teams like Boreham Wood, who are, a quality side, but they're only used to getting 1,000, aren't they, at home?
If they're lucky.
If they're lucky. They play, yes, they played Everton. Yes, they played Bournemouth in their last FA Cup games, but were Bournemouth and Everton fans really that up for Boreham Wood at home? Were they really going to be kicking up a big atmosphere? I think, the way we made it so intimidating, so loud, I think it did get into their heads too. And I think the 12th man was a real big aspect of this game, Bill.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like sort of going back to my point of us big teaming them. I think there was a few times their players looked up at the Rex front and were like, geez, this isn't no hiding here today, is there? And perhaps that's why Scott Bowden reacted the way he did, because he's thought, I'll try and shut them up here. And it didn't work out for him. But yeah, the atmosphere really made a huge impact. I mean, we've talked about it before, Mark, about how does the atmosphere come through in the commentary. Did that sound particularly bigger than other games this season?
Well, let's put it this way. The headphones that we use are very well insulated. And normally I like to have one ear on and one ear off because I want to hear what's happening with the commentary, but I want one ear off so I also get a feeling of being in the ground. I left both my headphones on for the whole game, and I found it quite difficult to hear what the other commentators were saying. So yes, I'm going to say yes. It came through pretty well.
Wow. Well, yeah, it was bouncing, and when those goals went in, it was just like one of those crazy games where people were just hugging everyone around them. They didn't even have to know they were. People were falling over. It was bouncing. It was just, it felt like a special night. And I think if we go up this season, we're going to be looking at the Boreham Wood game thinking that was the home game we needed this season. And I think if we played Boreham Wood earlier on in the season, I don't think we would have got that result. I think everything's clicking into place now with the management, with everything. We've got the Ollie Palmer now, and I think honestly, if we played Boreham Wood early on in the season, we may have had a different result. So it's the perfect time to play a team of that quality back.
Yeah, 100%. We've been on a journey this season. We've accumulated the team in 2 transfer windows, and it now looks like probably what Parkinson intended in the first place.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Phil Parkinson, we're going to be talking about him next.
I'm Harry Lennon, and this is Dragonheart.
Well, Phil Parkinson, he has had his critics this season. I think quite unfairly at times. But yeah, what's your assessment of him so far this season, Bill?
I think a manager that's quite reserved and measured is always going to struggle to win the fans over with the style of football that Parkinson plays or started with at the start of the season. Now, obviously, we've talked at length about how it's quite misleading to say that 3-5 at the back is defensive. But I think we were playing it quite defensive at the start of the season, and we've grown into quite an attacking side. But people like that fire and brimstone sort of manager, don't they? Who's walking up to the stands and fist pumping and giving it all that, and that's not really Parkinson. I know he reacted against Chesterfield, but I actually I've not that I didn't like him, but I've warmed to the fact that he is going to come over and give us a bit of appreciation when it's deserved, and he doesn't have to do it every game because we're showing on the pitch that his tactics are working. He's really quietly built a very strong team here, and I know me and Mark are confident. You not so much, Chay, but I would have us as very strong favourites to go up next year if we don't go up this year and we retain the majority of the squad, because he's built a team and a tactic that's going to be successful in the National League, and I think we'd be silly not to keep him on.
I agree, and I don't know if I would have done a couple of weeks ago. But you look at this now and you think, right, yeah, we shouldn't. If we don't go up, we shouldn't really be dismantled. And as long as we don't choose to do that, we'll be. I feel like we just blow the National League away next year. Add a couple more players in the summer. You know, I mean, wow. I totally understand, Jay, why people had some reservations. Because I mean, I had some reservations. I personally really like Dean Keats, and I would like to have seen him have a chance to spend a big budget. And Parkinson comes into a sort of no-win situation where if he doesn't get the job done, he's in jeopardy, because you don't spend a lot of money and say, oh, we might go up in 4 years. You spend a lot of money and you expect results. And as Bill said, things didn't develop at first. I've got to be honest, though, I think a lot of fans were looking to judge him before having a look at him. You know, they'd seen Sunderland fans moaning about him, so they picked up on that, started talking about how negative he's supposed to be. I never really got the impression he was negative, but he clearly in the summer didn't finish building the squad. And that don't think it's his fault, because we were going after difficult transfer targets, weren't we? We were going after players who shouldn't want to come down to our league, and we didn't land enough of them. But we did by the time this last transfer window's ended. And I think we're now properly seeing what he'd intended, and this looks like the sort of side that can blow teams apart. I think that it was a lack of personnel. Hall Johnson getting injured in the first game of the season was a big blow to him, because he's assembled a squad to play three at the back. And then those wing backs became Tyler French and Jamie Record. I'm not being critical of them, but they are not wing backs who will fly up the wing at high pace and rip balls into the box. Although French has something to offer going forwards. But once it was Hosanna and Hall Johnson down the flanks, yeah, different story altogether. And our style started to evolve. And that's the point, if you look at the results, where we really kicked off was when they got in, and then Hall Johnson, was fit again and able to get up and down, and that's when we really developed. And now you look at it and you think, right, okay, you can see exactly what he was trying to do. You can see why he was saying we look at our best when we keep the ball, even though we look like quite a direct passing team. And yeah, I don't think anybody can complain about the way he has constructed the team in order to get to this point, I would argue.
Yeah, I'd really argue McFadden and Ollie Palmer could be the turning point in our season, couldn't they, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. I think coming sort of back to Mark's point about changing the fullbacks, I think we dropped off as well when Jake Hyde got injured. I think that was a bit of a blow to our style of play. Mullen and Ponticelli are both very good players and would work well with target men strikers, but although they had a lot of good games together, it's difficult to see how Parkinson's system works with them two as the main strikers. I think Jake Hyde looked really impressive in this first set of games, and he's been unfortunate really to have picked up his injuries and not had a bit of a run in the team. Similarly, I think a fully fit Kwame Thomas from the start of the season that had the run of games would have also done a similar sort of job for us. But Palmer is that level above, isn't he?
Oh, he's brilliant, isn't he? I'm just looking at, actually, you're quite right. Hyde gets injured at Marine, and then the next 5 games, we won 2 and lost 2, and one of those was a home against Marine, the wins, that is. So, yeah, you're right. It did have a bit of an impact on us, I think. The thing is that last loss is the Harrogate game, and that's the first time Hall Johnson and Bryce Hosanna are on the pitch together. And for me, I've said all along, that's a turning point. Looking at the results going on, I'm going to be boring. I'm going to read them through very quickly. Yeah. From that point, our results: 1-1 draw, 1-1 lost, 1-1-1-1 lost, 1-1-1 drew, lost. See, the runs of the run are now 6 wins in a row. We've won a lot of games since that turning point, and yeah, we look now like what he wanted us to be. 17 out of 22 games we've won now. That's not bad.
It's impressive. It's impressive.
And it explains why. Get ready, folks. There's a stats train coming. At the moment, Phil Parkinson has got the best win percentage of any Wrexham player in the club's history. Now, I admit, he's only had 37 games, very wary of judging a manager on that. The best win percentage is Sam Ricketts. I'm very wary of saying that because he's only had 25 games. And then the one before
and
that.
It's Sam Ricketts.
Say again?
And it's Sam Ricketts as well. We don't 100%. Like to give him credit.
100%. And the third best win percentage, and the one I feel is really the mark, if you like, is Andy Burrell, 52% out of 144 games. That's consistent winning. But 59% is tasty. And then when it comes to loss percentages, so the fewest percentage of games lost, well, your best one again is Ricketts, but I think he's a bit of an anomaly. The next one, 17% lost in 146 games, is Keats over the two spells. And third best is Parkinson. So the figures, to be fair, are stacking up. It's very impressive.
It's very impressive. And we're also still in the trophy as well. So we could potentially be finishing this season as league winners and FA Trophy champions. So, he could go down as one of the most iconic managers in Wrexham's history. If that's the case, I've always said whoever gets us out this league will be known as a cult hero forever.
Yeah. I've got to say as well, looking at him personally, I mean, okay, we're bringing him on his reputation. I think he could argue he's delivering on that because this season we've, in the league, averaged 1.97 points per game. That's the best he's managed in a season in his whole life. So he's performing against his own standards as well.
Wow. So, yeah, it's positive times at the moment then, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, we're all park in sun rather than park out sun, aren't we, at the moment?
Nice. Some nicknames
awful
for
pun.
Parkinson. The silent destroyer.
Yeah, he is quite quiet on interviews. Sometimes he's got a very softly spoken voice for a manager, isn't he? To be fair, I called a few of his interviews on the camera, and sometimes it's quite hard to hear what he's saying.
Gentle shark.
Yeah,
the gentle shark, Sharkinson.
Oh, Sharkins! Oh, Phil Parkinson.
I think as well, though, to be fair, for someone like that, if he then was to have a right go at you, I think it would have a bit more impact, wouldn't it, than someone who's always barking at people.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. I think the people who shout all the time, you don't pay much attention, do you? Unless it's someone like, Deitch, and yes, you think he might kill you or eat you.
But yeah, it's really positive at the moment. I think a lot of Wrexham fans get a bit over the top dramatic when we lose a game when it comes to managers, to be honest. We have got a bit of theatrical fan base. So, yeah, I think he's doing a cracking job, and hopefully he can be the man to get us out of this league, because we need to. We really do need to get out of this league soon. After this, we're going to be talking about big attendances and our results.
I'm Jake Hyde, and this is Dragonheart.
Well, Mark is now going to be a mythbuster, and he's going to see if the big attendances have actually been getting to the players' heads, and if it has actually been affecting performances. He's got his spreadsheet out. He's been working hard at it. What are the results, Mark?
Aren't you going to have a bet first on whether we crumble or not?
I think big crowds don't affect our performances.
I think big crowds do affect our performances, and they're going to be more positive than we thought they were.
Ooh. Well, the answer is a bit of everything. Sorry. I certainly think if you're an optimist, the last couple of weeks have certainly helped because we're getting huge crowds and big wins. What I did, right, I didn't want to just say what average points do we get per game in different crowds against, depends on crowds, because I think that's a bit too vague a way to work it out. So what I did was oh God, I'm sad. I went through every season in the National League, because I thought that's 13 years, that's enough data. And I looked at the final position of all our opponents. And I worked out the average points we get against each position, if you see what I mean. Which was quite interesting, because it was not what you expect. Yes, we get most points per game against a team that finishes bottom of the league. When we play teams bottom of the league, this is only at home, we get 2.6 points on average per match. So we win almost all of them. It doesn't actually just fall like that, though, because weirdly, we do really well against teams that win the league. So we get 1.69 points per game against teams that win the league, which is much, much better than, say, against teams who come fourth, where we only get 3/4 of a point per game. So it varies. So I was thinking, right, okay, so when we play the big teams, I'll do better with big crowds. So I tried to work it out like that, if that makes sense. And basically, right, we've had, I sort of split it into sort of echelons of 500. So attendance 9,500 plus, then an attendance of 9,000 plus, up to 9,500. And then I looked at the average points against that we normally get against a team in that position, and then how we've actually performed. And in massive crowds, it does look we've done worse than expected, better than 9,500, but we've only had one game with that sort of crowd, so I think we've got to pass that by. Crowds above 9,000, we get a point more on average than you'd expect us to. So we perform very well with that sort of big crowd. 8,500 to 9, 0.04 worse, so a fraction worse. And then the next two, we get about, crowds between 7,500 and 8 and 8.5, we get 0.5 point extra per game. So quite frankly, the best results we get pretty much tend to be when we have crowds bigger than 7,500. So I would say, if anything, it's suggesting that we do perform well in front of big crowds. However, there is a condition, because the next two sizes of crowd down are actually the ones that we do pretty badly in front of. So basically crowds between 6 and 7. Is that because that was before we spent money? So we've been getting more than that every game this season, except Notts County match. So this current team definitely doesn't underperform. It does well in front of a big crowd. And those are the big crowds we were getting before we spent money, those big occasions. So maybe in the past, we've underperformed in front of big crowds, but now we perform in front of big crowds. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I remember we've had one or two bad results against them that should not be named down the road. And I think when we didn't have money, that would have been about somewhere 6,000-7,000 crowd, wouldn't it, when we played them? So
actually, no.
And they wouldn't be. Oh, right, okay.
I just looked. We only played them once with a crowd above 6.5, and that was under Keats. Keats' last game of his first spell, beaten 2-0. And then the next biggest crowd down, 6,459, was also Chester. We beat them 3-0. The next biggest Chester crowd was when Kieran Morris scored and we beat them. When we lost to them, there were only, it's still in there, 6,037. But yeah, so basically, crowds above 7.5, we are overperforming for a lot of them of this season. And then there's a bit of a lull down to about 6,000, then we sort of pick up again.
Oh.
You could also say it's a relationship between how good or bad we are. We're getting big crowds because we're a good team. Therefore, we win in front of big crowds.
Yeah.
We've got looking at the other end of the scale, we're not so clever again in front of small crowds. Well, that's probably because we've got we had a poor team.
Well, there we go then. That answers it, doesn't it? We perform well with big crowds, so
keep turning up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a myth about the big crowd thing, really, then, isn't it?
I would say so.
Yeah. So
I think then maybe do people translate big games to big crowds, and actually it's not necessarily the case in terms of the crowd being as big as the atmosphere or the importance of the game. And obviously we wouldn't still be in this league if we were turning up for all those big games, would we?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I'm just looking at the average, the positions these teams were in. The biggest crowd we've had was against Torquay, who were 13th. Then it's Chesterfield, who were 12th at the time, who finished 12th that season. So, yeah, that's true. I'd also say, I forgot to say, I also added in playoffs, or the only home games. I didn't put cup games in because obviously that can have a further effects on the crowds, can't it? That tiny crowd against Gloucester doesn't tell us anything. But I put the playoffs in as well. So yeah, we seem to perform pretty well in front of big crowds.
Yeah, I'm glad that's been, because something we've been talking about for the last few weeks, the big crowd thing at home. Yeah, I'm glad we've myth busted that.
One last point I just forgot to say is that top 12 crowds we've had in the last 13 years, we didn't lose any of those games.
Wow.
Grimsby 150th anniversary is the biggest crowd we've lost in front of, 8,163. But there's 12 games more than that. And then the only other loss that we've had above 7.5, so that's in 17 games, is a Yeovil match where we had to play a sent-off in the first half.
There we go then. There we go. Myth busted with Mark Griffiths.
Yay.
And on that note, guys, that's the end pretty much. Follow Dragonheart on Twitter, Instagram, and all that good stuff. Follow all the amazing stuff that the media team's producing on the Wrexham Twitter, the AAA and all that. It's all fantastic. Yeah, so keep tuning in. I've been Chay Long. This has been Mark Griffiths and Bill Long. This has been Dragonheart.